Sometimes in life these interludes happen. It's like a nightmare. All you want to do is wake up. Sometimes you wake up and the nightmare turns out to be real. Dexter, I need to talk to you about something. I looked at my wife of 12 years. The wind fluttered a strand of her hair, pulling it out of the open T-tube, a T-shaped automobile roof with removable top panels, and the rest of it developed in waves. She was beautiful to the core, to the point of losing her pulse. There was so much fire in her hair it moved around her face in waves of heat, most of it falling over the pale green sundress that fit her perfectly. They framed a face that women were willing to die for and men were willing to fight for. Her skin was creamy white, a few freckles dotting her nose. Others would appear later when she was in the sun longer, disappearing after a few hours before fading away completely. Unless she was under ultraviolet light, her huge brown eyes were clouded with worry and her red lips tightened. Could it wait 5 minutes? I asked. It's kind of hard to carry on a conversation because of the wind and exhaust noise. She nodded. We have a 1978 Trans Am that we like to cruise around in, and the exhaust is pretty loud, especially with the roof open. I think I knew what was coming next, what she wanted to talk to me about, and really it didn't interest me much. I guess I had to do it, so I just gritted my teeth. We pulled up to the cabin. We bought a place on the lake 2 years ago and spent the weekends there. Kia and Mia, our 8-year-old twins, were spending the weekend with my parents, and this was a chance to be alone. I felt like we needed it. We got out of the car, took the groceries and our bags inside and set them down. I opened 2 beers and walked out onto the back porch. It is enclosed by a screen and runs along the entire back of the house. There's a big hammock, and I stretched out on it, just relaxing and listening to the noise of the boats on the lake. After a minute, Kathleen came out and got her beer and snuggled up to me. I stroked her hair and she purred, resting her cheek against my chest. Those impossibly huge eyes looked up at me. Dex, Derek Harper is back in town. She said he works in sales at my company. Yeah, I know. I said. Her eyes traveled to my face. You do? You didn't say anything? What did you want me to say? I asked. I don't know. She was still a little shocked that I knew stay away from him. I expected that if you knew you'd say something. Your ex-fiancé shows up after 12 years, and you expect me to say something. I thought, okay, stay away from him, Kat. Are you upset? She asked, do I have any reason to be upset? I had lunch with him. She said, I know. She tensed again. You knew, and you didn't say anything. What would be the point? I asked her. You knew I wouldn't like it. I don't own you, Kat. You can have lunch with whoever you want. I don't think that was the answer she was looking for. What do you mean? Now she was agitated. He asked me to meet him at the Rhino on Friday after work. Yeah, I know. I said, what the hell is wrong with you, Dex? She was visibly upset, her stunning breasts beginning to rise and fall rapidly. How do you know all this in the restaurant behind you? Penny was sitting in the booth next to you. I said, Penny is my personal assistant. Now CL's face was flushed. What did she say to you? Do you think she lied? I asked. No, I don't think she would do that. She calmed down a little. You didn't say no to him as firmly as I would have liked. I said, are you going to go next time he asks, Kathleen? No, of course not. She said. I put my fingers under her sharp little chin and tilted her head up to look into her eyes. Kat, don't lie to me. I said we never lied to each other about important things. She looked away and then returned her eyes to mine. I don't think so. Dex, I'm tempted. I need you to help me fight for me. Dex, I will help you. I said I'm not going to fight for you, Kat. I'm not going to compete with anyone for your affection. I think you might enjoy the drama, but it's not going to happen. We're married, so the competition is over. Competition, that's on you. You're the one who needs to fight. Look at me, Kat. Look at what you have. Think about what you have at home. Think about who's waiting for you at Mom and Dad's house. That's what you're fighting for. She snorted, and I could see tears rolling down her cheeks. That's what makes this so hard, she said. I know what I have, and I know I shouldn't be tempted, but you are tempted. I said yes. I know I shouldn't. I love you, Dex. I love our life. I love my children and everything about my life. You're an amazing lover and the most romantic man I've ever met. You are attentive, kind, caring. All I've ever wanted is you. So tell me why, Kat. I don't know, she whispered. I just thought about what my life would have been like if I had married him. You were engaged to him, and you caught him in bed with the girl who was supposed to be your maid of honor. I reminded her, that's what you told me. He's a player, Kat. You'd probably get divorced, go through a lot of pain, and be an emotional wreck. What is it about him that attracts you? We've never had sex. She said, you know, I was a virgin when we met. I gave that to you. I'm wondering what would have happened if I'd slept with him. I wonder what it would be like. Do you know what I'm talking about? Well, yeah, I kind of do. I said I wonder what it would be like to _ Jennifer Thomas, that _ Yeah. Kathleen was outraged. Why are you looking at her? Oh, yes. Oh, I said you clearly don't have much respect for cheating. _ Cat. He doesn't. I think he is. Isn't he? She said. Well, he's trying to get into your knickers. I said he knows you're married. He knows you have 2 little girls. He knows you have a husband. Yeah, I guess that makes him a man. _ What does it say about you, Kathleen, that you don't seem to care? I care. She protested. What are you saying, Dexter? I'm saying that I don't think I know my wife very well. I told her I thought you loved me. I'd bet my dollar on it. Thought you had integrity. I was sure of it. Thought you would never, ever, ever risk hurting me. Your girls, your parents, my parents and our family, and now I find out that everything I was so sure of has fallen apart, and now I'm supposed to fight for you. Who are you, Cat? Now she burst into real tears. She was sobbing, and I just put my arms around her and let her cry. She looked at me with red, puffy eyes. What are we going to do? She wheezed. I don't know what you're going to do. I said, I'm not sure there isn't. I know what I'm going to do. What she asked, I'm going to protect myself. I said, I'm going to protect the girls and our family. What do you mean? Her voice was shaking with fear. Now, I mean that in case you decide to meet this _ for dinner or drinks, I have things I need to do. I said I've got it all ready to go. Are you threatening me? She asked, tensing in my arms. Not at all. I said I'm making a statement of intent. You made the first mistake when you didn't tell me he was back in town. Another mistake you made when you talked to him the first time and didn't tell me the third was when you met him for lunch and kept it from me. Now you have a little credit for telling me about it. I don't trust you anymore, Kat. How do I stay married to you? You tell me, are you going to divorce me? She gasped. How do you think that would work, Dexter? I haven't done anything wrong. Yes, you did. I said you're in the process of destroying my ability to trust you. Do you think you're going to make it work in the divorce? She asked. Probably not. I said, I know the justice system acts like betraying everyone who loves you is just fine, but somehow I don't think you'll get any satisfaction out of it. If you don't wake up, you'll be just another cheating wife for the rest of your life. Everyone you respect and care about will know that I think you're a good person, Kat. And I don't think you can live with yourself every time you look in the mirror, every time you look into the eyes of the girls, your parents, or your sister. You're going to see a reflection of who you are and what they think of you. I don't think you can do that. You're going to hurt me badly, hell you already have, but in the end I'll get over it. Other people have gotten over it and been happy. I'll find a way. She groaned slightly in frustration. I don't want a divorce, Dex. Can't you just let me do one thing? Can't you just let me deal with this? Get it out of my head and forgive me. I have no idea. I said I don't think so, but I might surprise myself. I don't think I have it in me. I could forgive Kathleen, whom I married and fell in love with almost anything I could have forgiven some compromising situation. Maybe you were drunk, there was a party, everyone was _ and you just got carried away in the moment. That would be hard, but I could forgive something like that. People make mistakes. I make mistakes, and you forgive me. You make mistakes, and I forgive you. There's something different here. This is a deliberate, calculated plan of betrayal and treason. I could forgive that cat, the one who loved me but made a mistake. You know the cat from 6 months ago? I'm so desperately in love with her that it makes me shiver inside you. I doubt I can forgive what you've already done. It seems unlikely right now. You're someone I barely know. She got up with difficulty and ran off to the cabin in tears. I was quite comfortable and just closed my eyes and relaxed. Eventually, I fell asleep. And when I woke up, it was dark. I could see lights on the other side of the lake. And there was a boat fishing about 50 m from the cabin. I looked around. Kat was sitting in a chair about 1.5 meters away from me. She was covered with a plaid and crying, watching me. She noticed that I was awake. Dexter, I'm still the same person I was 6 months ago. She said, how can you say I've changed and you don't love me? I never said that. I told her, if you are the same person you were 6 months ago, then I never knew you, Kathleen. Tell me, 6 months ago, did you think about _ anyone but me? No, of course not. She said, I love you with all my heart, Dex. That's it. I said, you've changed, Dex. If you just listen to me, we can get through this. She said, okay, talk. I'm listening. I said, I've never had sex with anyone but you. She said, I've never even wanted it. You've always been everything I wanted or needed. I love being your wife. I love being a mom of girls. I love everything about our lives. I just can't help but think about what it would be like. I wonder what it would be like to make love to someone else if you let me. It would be over. My questions would be answered. I wouldn't have this feeling that keeps eating me up. It would be over. Do you believe I love you, Dex? No, I don't think I do. I said that, set off another bout of sobs and tears. How can you say that? She wailed. I love you, Dexter. I love you more than anything in the world. I thought I could talk to you about this, and we could work through it together. Would you rather I just kept it from you? I was honest with you, and I came clean. Isn't that important to you? I didn't say anything. The silence stretched indefinitely, broken only by her sniffling. I pondered. Finally, I was ready. Okay, I said, yes, it matters that you came to me with this. If you had hidden it, we wouldn't have had a glimmer of a chance. You should have been honest with me from the beginning. You talked to me, and I give you credit. I'll give you an example. Let me ask you something. Suppose I tell you that I love Mia and Kia with all my heart. Across the street lives our little neighbor, Melinda. You believe I love our girls. And then 10 years later, you discover I have a secret room in the basement. You find out that I allow Melinda to come over and we torture Mia and Kia in the basement room. I tell you that I love them and that the torture will only last 2 weeks. After that, Melinda will leave and the torture will be over. Would you think I love them? That's ridiculous, she hissed. You don't torture the ones you love, you're torturing me. I told her there's no waterboarding, no blowhole, no twisting screws, but that's what you do. You can portray it all beautifully if you want, but you're mentally torturing the one you say you love. If that's your idea of love, I would never want you to hate me. I'm not trying to torture you, she practically shouted. You think this isn't torture for me? I thought I could talk to you about it. I thought you would help me, not try to make me feel guilty. Don't you feel like I'm sick enough without all this? What exactly did you expect me to say? Or do, Kat? I asked you, tell me what you want me to do. Then I'll tell you if I can do it. I expected you to understand and support me. She said, Dex, if you loved me the way I love you, you would be patient and loving, not harsh and judgmental. Don't you get it? I need to explore my feelings. If you really loved me, you would support me while I figure things out, knowing that my love would bring me back to you. If I really love you, do you doubt that I will come back to you? Why can't you just support me and let me deal with my feelings? What are you even talking about? I asked. You're asking me to sit around and wait for you while you go and sleep with some jerk. Am I supposed to support you in this? Am I supposed to understand that? Where did you get that idea? It sounds like some 1960s pop psychology. You're some kind of hipster psychologist. Now, Sandra and I took a class, she said defensively. The instructor says some very insightful things. Sandra, I almost exploded. Is that the Sandra who's been married 4 times? Is this the Sandra who lives in some crummy apartment and never sees or speaks to anyone in her family because they disowned her for being a ... Is she your hero now, Kat? No wonder you're so ... up. I'm ... Because my husband is a jerk, she replied. I took a deep breath and pulled myself together before I said something I'd regret later. Here's what's going to happen, Kat. I'm giving you this weekend to pull yourself together. As far as I know, you haven't done anything irreversible yet. When we get home, the countdown starts. You have a week to decide if you want to be married to me. If you talk to Derek Harper, you better tell him to go to hell. If you meet him for lunch, we're done. If you meet him for drinks, we're done. If you see him outside of work, we're done. You activate the GPS on your phone. If I see you where you shouldn't be, we're done. If you're going to work late, you better call me and tell me why and who you're working with. If Derek Harper's there, you won't be there. You're going to tell your boss you won't work around Derek Harper because he made sexual propositions to you. The last thing you'll do is call Sandra, do it in front of me, and tell her you don't want to ever see her or talk to her again. You're going to do that before we leave here from this weekend. When we get home, you'll find a marriage counselor and a personal counselor, and we'll go to the marriage counselor together. You'll go to the personal counselor alone. Any failure to do any of these things, and it's over between us. I will help you and support you in anything you do to try to save our marriage. I will not help or support any of your attempts to destroy it. You need to go and think about all of this if you don't want to do this. None of this. You just have to say one word. That word is no. She looked at me like I had grown another head. I didn't give her a chance to speak. I just got up and walked into the house, leaving her there on the porch. When I got out of the shower, she was still there. I got into bed and surprisingly fell asleep quickly. I don't know when she came to bed, but I woke up to her snuggled up against my back. She was clearly naked. "Yes, Dexter," she whispered in my ear. "Yes, I want to stay married to you. I'm so sorry I put you through all this. I'll do anything you ask. I've been thinking for hours. I was up all night. I would do anything to stay married to you, and I won't do anything else to not risk losing you or our family. I don't even want to anymore. I don't know what's gotten into me. I'm going to counseling. I'll do whatever you ask me to do. You just tell me what you want. I told you I love you, and I mean it. I'm never talking to him again." I turned to face her. "That's good, Kat. I'm happy you feel that way. It's the first step." I wasn't happy about it from the beginning. I think there's something wrong with you for even thinking something like that. I don't know why you're doing it, and I don't understand it. I think you should find out and try to fix the situation. Why do you think there's something wrong with me?" "Dexter," she asked. "I'm not trying to argue or make you angry. Don't you know that a lot of people have open marriages and live just fine? I don't know where you got that information from." I told her it's a lie. I did a little research when I first found out about your little proclivity. It's just not true. No one really knows. I have no idea how many are out there. Some people may be happy, but I know I won't be one of them. We all make choices. I know what I can live with and what I can't. For some people, it may work just fine. For me, it doesn't. I'm just telling you I'm not going to live that way, and I think there are very few people who live that way. Are you sure about that? She asked Sarah, and our instructor said that a lot of people are in open relationships. Sarah and your instructor are total crap. I told her I don't really care if everyone in the world has an open marriage. It's the divorces that haven't happened yet. What are the odds that our marriage will be one of the ones that work out? "Not very good ones," she asked in a muffled voice. "I'm not that kind of guy." I told her I don't like the humiliation. I don't like the feeling of jealousy. I hate the idea that my wife could be with another man. I'm not attracted to it at all. I don't get an erection at the thought of being with another man. It makes me nauseous. From what I've read, the only way such marriages survive, even for a short time, is if both partners are okay with it. I am against it. I guess I never gave it much thought. She was crying now. "Were you going to set me up with some hot woman? Or was it just supposed to be you?" I asked her. "I get it, Dex." She said, "Please don't keep beating me up. I'm a stupid, __. It was a stupid idea, and I'm sorry I didn't think it through. I didn't have a plan, and just the thought of you with someone else is killing me. I didn't think about it. I don't know what the hell was wrong with me. It hurts so much, Dexter, but thank you for doing what you had to do. If you had let me do that, it would have destroyed us. It would have destroyed me. I know that now I would never be able to look at myself in the mirror again. Just like you said, if you had just given in, it would have been a disaster. I'm not even sure I'd respect you. I have a lot of work to do, don't I? That's okay. I was stupid enough to make this mess. I'll have to be smart enough to fix it. I think you can do it, Kat." I told Hero, a pretty sharp cookie, "You do stupid things sometimes. But so do I. I'm sorry I hit you over the head with a baseball bat, but it felt right, it did." She said, "I can't wait to hit you with one of those, though. You better watch out, big boy." For the first time in 4 weeks, I laughed. "Well, I'm thinking of buying a motorcycle, so I guess you won't have to wait long." She smiled and then sighed. "I've got some phone calls to make." She said, "I'd better get started, Dex, when I get back. I'm going to __. You senseless. You better be ready 4 hours later." I decided that unconsciousness was a pretty nice place to be. Sometimes in life you have these interludes. It's like a nightmare. Sometimes you wake up and the nightmare is real. Sometimes you just wake up and you breathe a sigh of relief. You lie there in a sweat and thank your lucky stars that you woke up. My name is Felix Schrodinger, and I don't get jokes. I have a sense of humor, but I don't get jokes, especially if someone is the victim of the joke, and especially if I'm the victim. And by the way, I have a cat, and like all cats, she likes to climb into crates and actually into all sorts of containers and confined spaces. I have no idea why it's just a cat thing. I think you may have heard of Schrodinger's cat, although you may be a little unsure of what that means. Schrodinger, the famous one, not me or my grandfather, was a physicist. He gave his name to a thought experiment in which he placed an imaginary cat in a box with a mechanism that may or may not have killed the cat depending on a random subatomic event. We only find out if the cat is alive or dead by opening the box. Until then, the cat is alive and dead at the same time. How you interpret this mental experiment leads to deciding whether or not we live in a multiverse, so at least from a physics perspective, it's a pretty big deal. Joking often serves as a cover for aggression by lashing out at the joker, you'll hear. Don't you get jokes? I was just kidding. Have you lost your sense of humor? And many other variations on that theme. I worked hard at university because I knew my parents were struggling to help with my studies while other kids were having fun. And so I became the center of pranks from rich kids who saw my passion as a kind of coded criticism. This goes some way to explaining my allergy to April Fool's Day. So often it turns out to be extremely obnoxious. Someone tries too hard and is completely uninspired, commits a joke that on any other day would be taken as an invitation to get a punchline, but on this day they have a free pass. And if you object, it means you can't take a joke, okay? And back to my story again. These days, you may well have heard of me, but at the time these events took place, I was a budding biotech entrepreneur. I was already successful enough to own my own house in a decent part of London. It was the first day of April, and a month earlier you could say everything was perfect. My friend Sarah had moved in with me, and my friends were saying she was perfect for me. I admit that I have a tendency to be a bit stressed out trying to plan everything, and it's not easy for me to relax, but it's also one of the reasons why I had a house in London when I wasn't yet 30. They saw that Sarah was helping me not to take things too seriously. She was fun to be around. I worked pretty hard because there was an opportunity to do a big deal with a major pharmaceutical concern to provide them with important precursors for a whole range of drugs at a price that was less than normal. This was because we had come up with a different way of producing them. I knew that if we made a deal, I would be set for life. And I was the kind of guy who would only propose to his girlfriend when he was sure he could support her and the family he hoped to have. I had already bought the ring, but was procrastinating on the proposal. Unfortunately, Sarah didn't seem to appreciate it. Fun was important to her, and as far as she was concerned, I wasn't as fun as I used to be. And then her university friend Mark got kicked out of his apartment, and she insisted that we let him stay in the spare room, saying it would only be for a couple days. By the 1 of April, he had been there for 2 weeks and seemed quite comfortable. Which makes sense since he hadn't paid rent and hadn't yet taken a course on loading and unloading the dishwasher when he arrived. I didn't ask him for anything, as it was only supposed to be for a couple days, oddly enough. Although he annoyed me immensely, I didn't see him as a competitor in a romantic sense. No ambition whatsoever, immature, lacking in manners, uncultured, proud of his ignorance. I hope you get the picture on top of that. Sarah assured me that they had never been in a relationship, and honestly, I'm pretty sure she wasn't lying. The deed was done, the contract was signed, dated Friday the 1st of April, and I could move forward with our plans for the first time in a long time. I was leaving work at 4. I told my secretary, Gail, that I was leaving. She asked if I was heading home, which in retrospect was odd since she usually never asked me that, but I didn't pay any attention to it at the time. I had plans for the evening. I had plans, and they definitely didn't include Mark. He could spend his time watching pointless reality TV as usual. We're going to a fancy restaurant, and at some point I'll pull out a little box, get down on one knee, and ask a question. That's how I saw that evening. But as a famous German general said, no plan survives contact with the enemy. Items of intimate apparel in the hall and on the stairs, sounds coming from upstairs. Sarah's voice screamed in ecstasy. Mark grunted, then said, "Exactly, take it." Sarah screamed, "Take me! Mark, take me!" There were 11 steps and each one seemed to be a meter high. I got to the top and stood facing our bedroom door. All I had to do was reach out and open it, me stud. I threw up quietly and without warning, and suddenly I could think. I turned around and headed down the stairs strangely. It seemed to get quiet upstairs, though I was pretty sure they couldn't hear me in the kitchen. I wrote a short note when I get back. Mark had better leave or his next accommodation will be a hospital room. You'll also need to find another place to live. I got out, got in my car, and drove to the Venus bar. I parked, walked in, and ordered myself a Diet Coke. I only drink alcohol when I'm happy, but not when I need to think. The Venus bar caters mostly to the DRGs of humanity, or so it seems. Oddly enough, it's in a fairly posh part of London, but that doesn't do justice to the interior or the customers. That's why I go there when times are tough. It gives me perspective. After a few minutes, I started to see the positives. On some level, I already felt something wasn't right. That's why I didn't propose to her sooner. At least we weren't married yet. Oddly enough, the thing that angered me most at that moment was not the infidelity, not the disrespect, but the stupidity. Besides, I wondered what the hell she found in Mark. I know I looked at him through the eyes of a man, but I don't think he was particularly handsome. He didn't keep himself in shape like I did despite my workload, and he certainly wasn't dapper, nor did he have prospects. Those were my thoughts as I sat there. Then she walked into the bar, gorgeous, dressed elegantly in sexy high black heels. What I was almost certain of were stockings, not tights, totally out of place at the Venus bar. And I knew it. All those sneaky guys turned their heads like crocodiles on the riverbank, ready to slip into the water, grab a tempting calf, and drag it under. She put the phone to her ear and spoke venomously, a joke, a April Fool's prank. I can't believe you did this to me, knowing how I feel about it. I could see the tears coming. You'll be here in half an hour. What am I supposed to do now? I don't even have any money or cards because you took them out of my wallet. Her voice became incredulous. Should I ask someone to buy me a drink here at this point? She broke down and ended the conversation. Now she just stood there, not knowing what to do. I didn't realize I was about to intervene myself. I beg your pardon? She flinched. I couldn't help but overhear your conversation, and I have a suggestion. She turned and looked at me with understandable suspicion. Then she did a sort of double take. You look kind of familiar. Have we met before now? I was the one who was caught off guard, and I answered with spontaneous honesty. I don't think so. I'm pretty sure I'd remember you. You're beautiful. She blushed slightly, and before she could respond, I added, I'm Felix ruining her. She smiled, and it was the most charming smile I'd ever seen. Wow, I see. I saw your picture today. You're the owner of Menel's Garden, aren't you? My editor wanted me to find out if you got that huge contract everyone's talking about with Paradise Pharmaceuticals. I was amazed that I was getting so much attention. I'm April Fuller. I just started at the Financial Times, kind of on probation. I was glad she was at least open to talking to me. I was going to suggest you stop by the Regency Hotel bar next door. It's a little more decent than this one, and then you won't be here when he shows up. She smiled, but then got a little concerned. As you may have heard, I don't have any money with me. I laughed. Well, it just so happens that after signing a certain deal today, I can afford to have a couple drinks. April grinned and nodded. I turned to the bartender, put a tea on the counter much more than my Diet Coke was worth, and said, keep the change, and when the guy comes in and asks about the lady, just tell him she left with a rich guy in a suit. Can you do that? He winked at us and said, sure, I hope he gets the joke. We went to a neighborhood bar. It amused me that a Venus bar could neighbor a 4-star hotel. The bar at the Regency was perfect for private conversations, and we sat in a semi-closed booth. We ordered coffee. So Felix, how is it that you find yourself in a place like the Venus bar alone, especially when it seems like you have something to celebrate? I realized she must find it strange. Well, it's kind of a tradition for me. When something goes wrong, I go and sit in the Venus bar and people watch, and I soon realize that my life is so much better than most people out there, no matter what temporary grief I'm going through. I guess it's a kind of therapy. April looked puzzled. I thought you said you made a PCT? I laughed mirthlessly. Well, I was on my way home at 4 o'clock this afternoon, intending to celebrate with my girlfriend and maybe even propose to her at 4:30. I listened to her already celebrating with her ex-boyfriend. I explained what had happened and what led up to it, and then my phone rang. It was Sarah. I'm sorry, April, but I should probably answer it. She's already tried several times. I took a deep breath and pressed the icon. I put my phone on speakerphone. For some reason, I guess I wanted April to know that I wasn't making up what I told her. Felix, thank God I caught you. It was just a prank. We didn't really do anything. If you'd come into the bedroom, you'd have seen it. I didn't know you'd react like that. Just come back and we'll explain everything. Suddenly, I felt completely calm. There was no more conflict inside me because I had made a decision for starters. Forget the we, your buddy better be gone by the time I get back. He's been living in my house rent-free for 2 weeks now, without even thanking me unless you count today, but Felix, and you'd better get yourself another place soon. But Felix, you've got it all wrong. It was just a joke, an April Fool's joke, not really Sarah. How about a little thought experiment? Try to imagine telling someone this story and convincing them you didn't do anything wrong. In fact, why don't you try it for real? Tell someone how you were in our bedroom with your ex-boyfriend making all the noises that accompany passionate sex, but that it was all completely innocent. There was a slight pause this time. Felix, it's not like that at all. April surprised me by picking up the phone and talking into it. Hi, Sarah, we can start this experiment right away. I just heard your story, and you certainly didn't convince me. Another pause on the other end of the wire. Who are you? April smirked. I'm just a girl. Felix picked up at a bar and asked me out for a drink. I guess you could say we both don't get the joke at this point. I picked up my phone and disconnected. We looked at each other and laughed, and then April said, "You know, Felix, the funny thing is, I feel like she's telling the truth." She looked at me thoughtfully. I know I have the same feeling, but I'm sure it doesn't matter. It was clear she understood and agreed, and I was happy she didn't need to explain. Okay, April, one good turn deserves another. You asked about the contract. She smiled and said, "Look, Felix, I don't want to take advantage of you. Please don't tell me something you shouldn't. Oh, don't worry about it. They've already agreed it can be made public and left it to me. Our company is not listed on the stock market, so there's no problem with stock price manipulation. I was going to wait until Monday to issue a press release, but there's nothing stopping it from being earlier, and the contract itself has to be in the public domain because of EU competition rules." She looked interested. "Give me your email address." April, she did. And I sent her a scan of the signed contract. "Why don't you call your editor and write a note?" Her eyes lit up. "Are you sure about this? I mean, it would really help me." "Of course it would. I'm not going anywhere. Can you dictate a note over the phone?" She nodded. "Then go ahead." Then she called the editor. "Hey, Reg, it's April. You asked me to look into the Mendel Garden deal." She put it on speakerphone. "Okay, do you have anything?" "Yes, I can confirm that the contract was signed today for 3 and 210 million euros. I think having years of experience meant he was careful. Sounds like fun, April. But do you have any proof?" "Maybe someone's just playing games here." "No, I have an impeccable source. I just sent you a scan of the contract." A very brief pause followed. Then it came back and his voice sounded a little concerned. "Well, it looks authentic, but how did you get it? I mean, there could be legal problems at this point." I picked up the phone. "Hi, Reg. This is Felix Schrodinger, owner of ML's Garden. We'll send my selfies with April in a minute to prove I'm not an imposter, and everything's okay. I was going to wait until Monday to break the news, but we met by chance. And April talked me into giving her the details. We asked the waiter to take a picture of us at the table, and we sent the photo to her editor. She then dictated her story over the phone, which took surprisingly little time, and impressed me with how she was able to organize her thoughts and construct a coherent article without pen and paper. Intelligence can be very sexy. As she finished, she laughed and said, "Well, things are definitely looking up. I'm feeling much better just at that moment." Her phone rang. Dan's name appeared on the screen. I guessed it was her boyfriend. After hesitating a bit, she picked up the phone and put it on speakerphone as well. Cell phone rings. "Yeah, hey baby, where are you? At the bar having a drink like you suggested." "Okay, tell me where it is and I'll come and get you." "No, you won't." "What do you mean, baby? Are you mad at me? It was just a joke." "Oh, I'm not mad anymore. I'm having a great time with Felix." "Who's Felix?" "Oh, I realize you're just messing with me." "No, Dan. Felix is a lovely man who took me to a much nicer bar and bought me a drink, and now my birthday is starting to feel good." "Wow. So it was her birthday. He did this to her on her birthday, April 1st. Her parents named her April, and I thought I was the one who had it bad." "Hey, babe, I realize maybe I went too far this time. Just tell me where you are." His voice was starting to sound a little whiny. I picked up the phone. "Hey, Dan, it's Felix. We're probably about to eat something and celebrate April's birthday in style. Don't wait up." I wondered if I'd gone too far and almost expected April to intervene, but she was clearly pleased. "Hey, April, enough. You've had your fun already now." She took my phone away from me. "What's the matter, Dan? Can't you take a joke? I'll see you later, or maybe in the morning." She ended the call, and then she did something complicated with her phone. "What are you doing, blocking his number?" "I can't turn my phone off yet because of work. They might need something." When I mentioned taking her out to a holiday dinner, I didn't think much of it. But she took me seriously, and I decided I was more than happy with the idea. It took me 2 minutes to get a reservation at the nearest reputable French restaurant. Now she was obviously a little concerned. "Look, Felix, I feel a little awkward about this, and it might be awkward for you to invite a journalist to dinner, so I understand if I laughed. How about I just invite April, a smart and interesting woman I'd like to get to know better, to dinner? And in the interest of full disclosure, she's also quite attractive and dressed incredibly sexy, and if you're not happy with that, I'd understand. If now she laughed in that case, I'd love to go to lunch with someone who knows how to be smart and sensitive without being a wuss. And in the interest of full disclosure, he is also a cliché, tall, dark-haired, and handsome stranger, and he looks very good in a suit." So led on as I entered the restaurant with April under my arm. I couldn't help but notice that many men's attention immediately focused on her. It might have been a more posh clientele, but the reality was little different from the scruffy guys at the Venus bar. The food was great, even if the waiter was a little pretentious, but it didn't matter as we both felt the same way. We were seated at 7 and suddenly it was 10. We talked so casually and laughed so freely, and then it became clear that while they were patient but they needed a table, our hands made involuntary contact more than once during the evening, and more often I caught myself looking into her beautiful blue-green eyes and physically reacting to the way she modestly lowered her eyes and then raised them again and even bit her lower lip once or twice, which I was sure was not intentionally seductive, but all the more arousing because it was unconscious. April's facial expression suddenly turned serious, and she said, "I had such a wonderful evening. It's the best birthday I've ever had, and I have to admit that the thought of going back to the apartment and seeing Dan is really depressing." I felt the same way. I knew I'd have to deal with Sarah if she was still there, but the thought of that confrontation was guaranteed to ruin the memories of the evening. "Okay, so what if I book us a couple rooms at the Regency? That way we can sleep here and deal with all the crap in the morning." I hoped that by emphasizing the two-room aspect, she would realize that I wasn't trying to force myself on her. We had just left the restaurant when she suddenly stopped on the sidewalk and pulled me to her. Looking into my eyes, she said, "You're not going to stay with Sarah, are you?" I didn't even have to think about it. God, no good. And I was done with Dan. I wondered where this was going, starting to feel the stirrings of something I couldn't yet identify, but which made me feel much more alive than I had in a long time. "But Felix, you've already spent more than enough money." I wanted to object, but she continued, "So let's save money and get just one room." I think my smile said it all. Then she put her arms around my neck and pulled me to her upturned face, saying, "And I think it's time for me to get the birthday kiss I've been dreaming about all night. Since the invention of the kiss, there have been 5 kisses that have been considered the most passionate, the purest. This one left them all behind." Neither of us had words for how we felt. We walked to the hotel in silence, my jacket thrown over her shoulders to protect her from the evening chill, and I wrapped my arms around her at the hotel front desk. April didn't feel the need to keep distance between us, rather proudly showing with her body language that she was with me. I splashed out on a rather luxurious room. Why not? I had just signed a contract worth millions. At first, we just looked around like children in a fairy tale. Then I turned to April and said, "I know it's your birthday today, but can I unwrap my present?" Suddenly a little embarrassed, she nodded. I took my time first. I just took my jacket from her, then I stepped back a bit to look at her in the exquisite dark green dress. The material looked and felt like silk. "You look so ravishing, so beautiful, and so sexy. I can't believe this is happening." She smiled shyly, not knowing what to say, but clearly enjoying the compliment. I didn't speak up, but I thought Dan really screwed up. He would never find another woman who could match April. I then walked over to her and stood behind her. I let the dress fall to the floor at her feet. Perhaps it really was silk, as it behaved almost like a liquid rather than a fabric. "I really hope you like neck kisses, April, because I'm going to kiss you." I felt her flinch. "I love neck kisses, but I think you can kiss me anywhere." I kissed her neck, enjoying how soft and smooth and warm it felt under my lips. "April, everything you said tonight was so smart, so true, so funny, and completely fair in every way. So please don't ruin it now by saying something stupid. Your breasts are perfection itself, and by the time we're done, it might hurt a little bit. Get out of your shoes, April." The truth was that I loved seeing her in stiletto heels and stockings, but her feet must be sore after an evening spent in them, and I wanted everything just for her pleasure. She did as I asked, and stood before me in stockings, gers, and black lace panties. She clearly wasn't an expert at wearing such lingerie as she fastened the stockings over the panties. But strangely enough, I found it cute. Maybe it even meant that I was the only man who undressed her while she wore stockings when I was younger. I'm sure I wouldn't have managed it without messing it up, but I took my time, and soon she was standing there in just stockings and a garter belt. I had never seen a sexier sight in my life. Now April spoke. "Felix, I don't think I can undress you quickly, and I desperately need you. Please get undressed as soon as possible. I need you." She didn't have to ask me twice. For a while, we just lay next to each other, too exhausted to do anything more than give each other tender caresses. While looking into each other's eyes, we were going to shower, but we ended up falling asleep, sweaty and smelling strongly of sex. I barely had the strength to pull the blanket over us and turn off the nightlights. In the morning, we showered. We had sex in the shower. Then I asked for breakfast to be brought to the room, and we spent a decadent time feeding each other in bed, which turned out to be pretty messy, and my conscience made me leave a big tip for the cleaners. When she turned on her phone, she had several messages from her editor. Her scoop had made the front page and been printed under her name, and she had been given a permanent position. The last message made us both laugh. It was from Regi, asking if she could talk me into an interview. We then split off in different directions to attend to the less pleasant business that awaited us, but already happy in the knowledge that we would see each other in the evening to celebrate April's promotion. I got home at 11:30 that morning. I wondered if I would have to physically evict Mark. But as it turned out, he was gone. I walked in and found Sarah sitting at the dining room table in the living room sipping coffee. She didn't look too good. And it occurred to me that despite making love to April for so long, I may have slept more than she did. Thank God you're here. Felix, now we can work things out. I went and poured myself some coffee. At that moment, it dawned on me that I couldn't remember her ever making or pouring coffee for me. I walked over and sat down at the table, settling in at the opposite end. Where were you last night, Felix? It amused me that she somehow felt entitled to ask me questions. Nevertheless, I indulged her. I stayed in a hotel alone. No, I spent the night with April. Just saying her name gave me a warm feeling, but apparently it didn't affect Sarah the same way. How could you do that, Felix? What about us? I tilted my head slightly to the side as if examining a particularly exotic bug. Sarah, I think the we ended yesterday, or rather a little after 4 o'clock. She looked at me disappointedly, but I told you, Felix, it was just a prank. If you had opened the door, she really didn't understand, Sarah. You know, the whole Shinger cat thing. She looked at me, not understanding what was going on. Yes, of course you explained it all to me, how you opened the box to see if the cat is alive or dead. But I don't see what that has to do with the case, among other things. You didn't open the door, too bad. You didn't do it. Then I stopped her. No, that's the point. I didn't have to open the door. I could see she still didn't understand. If I had opened the door, I might have seen you both naked on our bed. Her frustration showed again, but I told you, Felix, you couldn't have seen it, because it didn't happen. If you ask your secretary, Gail, she'll tell you how I asked her to let me know when you were heading home. I wouldn't do that, if it was real. I went on as if she hadn't said anything, or the other possibility was that I would have climbed those stairs, agonizing over those sounds thrown up at the top in disgust, and opened the door only to see the two of you fully clothed, far apart, laughing at me and saying April Fool's Day. Finally, she stopped talking. You see, Sarah, I didn't open the door because I didn't need to. Either way, our relationship was dead. Epilogue, April 1st, 4 years later. Jade Mountain Resort, St. Lucia. I've just watched April emerge from the infinity pool, silhouetted against the sunset. She's expecting our first child, and the bump is just starting to show. We've gotten into the habit of leaving at the end of March and returning in early April without telling anyone where we're going. I am too young to retire, even though I can easily afford it. Now I only work when I want to, and I look forward to being as involved as possible in raising our children. I recently learned from a friend at the time that I was probably the only person who believed Sarah when she said she hadn't slept with Mark. Even her own mother didn't believe her. I guess you could say it was a joke on her, but I don't think it was funny to her.